For this one, I got to watch a movie. Yay! Today I'm talking about The Children of Men by P.D. James, and also the film Children of Men, with the one with Clive Owen, where he dies at the end. Spoilers! I did what I always do when I'm watching a movie and reading, like, the book at the same time, is I read half the book, and then I watched the movie in the middle, and then I read the other half of the book. I did this with Fight Club, and I decided to do it with Children of Men as well, because I feel like it is a way for me to be relatively unbiased about it. At least unbiased insofar as I won't read the book and be like, the book is the right one, because I read this one first. And now I'm going to be straight with y'all, coming from my, I think, kind of unbiased opinion. I preferred the movie. Now, I think, to be fair, a large part of this has to do with the narrator for the book on Audible. Poor David Case. He has a very upper-class British accent, and hoo boy, does he milk that liquid U for all it's worth. He says things like sexual and sensual and pleasure. And it's not the most distracting accent in the world, but it's one of the most distracting accents in the world, and it's hard to take the book seriously. And this is not to say that the writing in the book is very good. And I've got highlighted some quotes. It's just really hard to take these well-written quotes seriously when they're being read in this accent. And I feel bad for poor David Case and all his compatriots with this accent, because I think it's an accent that will, because of, Monty Python and all the other millions of people that have spoofed this accent, it's an accent that will never again be not funny, which is too bad. Poor David Case. Especially when it's compared to Clive Owen, who is very stoic and very British and very earnest. I've never not been a Clive Owen fan, but I've never really been a Clive Owen fan. I've always just been kind of like, meh, about Clive Owen. He's just so earnest. Can't help but not like how earnest Clive Owen is in this movie. And, I can't help it. I am a product of my time. I am a 90s child, and I have been ruined by John McClane. I will always prefer the Everyman to the David Case man. Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet versus Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, when they talk about how Kenneth Branagh is like, stocky everyman. He's running around everywhere, and he's doing things, and he's shouting, and, Laurence Olivier is like, again, with that accent, sensual and pleasure. I started the book, and our dear friend Mr. Case went, Oxford, and I went, no. Having none of this. Because this is a novel about humanity dying out, and James thinks it's great to narrate about this guy's, childhood in a British mansion, and how he's teaching at Oxford in the 90s. I don't really want to hear about Oxford in the 90s or in the 2000s, or I just don't really want to read about Oxford ever, I think, is my point here. I don't want to read about Theo teaching at Oxford, because I don't like Theo in the book. I don't like him at all. And I think that's the biggest thing where I was like, I'm just gonna prefer the movie, because I don't like the main character in the book, because he's just really, when he finds out that the woman is pregnant, in the book she's Julian, in the movie she's Key. When he finds out that Julian's pregnant in the book, he's like, oh, but she's just kidding herself, like women, am I right? Always kidding themselves about how they're pregnant, and it's really just a stomach tumor, and she has cancer. And he's just really condescending about it, and it drives me crazy, and I'm just like, I just don't like him. I don't want to And I mean, I know he changes at the end, by the end, and that's the point, but I don't care. I just do not like him. Whereas in the movie, again, he's so earnest. Clive Owen's so earnest, and he's trying so hard to help this woman. And also, in the book, I don't really know what nationality the pregnant lady is, because on top of everything else, our dear friend Mr. Case cannot do accents. Like, he's trying really hard to do a Jamaican accent at one point, and that does not work out. And he's trying to do a German accent, and that does not work out. So I don't know what nationality she is, but I'm pretty sure, I want to say German, maybe. She's married to a German guy, or British. Either way, she's white. In the movie, she's a young lady of African descent. The director talks about how he wanted to make her not only a person of color, but also a refugee, because he wanted to give power back to the dispossessed, and that's kind of what that's about. So when you look at how the book ends, in the book, there's, a white guy in power, Theo's cousin, whose name, I think it's Xan. Xan is how David Case pronounces it. X-A-N. It's a weird name. Anyway, white guy, Xan, in power, running things. And things are bad for everybody who's not a British citizen. And then at the end of the book, the lady has her baby, and then Theo's in power. And so we go, like, the story's about the death of humanity and then its rebirth. So in the book, there's a white guy in power. Humanity is dying. Humanity is reborn. And instead it's a different white guy in power. And then in the movie, Clive Owen, spoiler, dies at the end. And he's like, the movie is still from the perspective of a white dude in Britain. But at the end of the movie, the power is not in the hands of said white dude. The power is then in the hands of this young black woman and her baby, which I think is a lot. Again, the director wanted to give the power back to, the dispossessed, which I think is a lot nicer of an ending, especially if you're trying to say something with the rebirth of humanity. Like, in the book, I feel like, yeah, there's humanity's dying out, and then there's a rebirth. And after the rebirth, things are essentially, basically very similar to the way they were before. Which, not crazy about that. And I mean, I think this is an excellent example of an adaptation done well. And this is, again, not to say that the movie doesn't have flaws, because there are some, but like, overall, it is a very well put together movie. And I think this is an example of an adaptation that's done really well, because you have, because I think the goal of an adaptation is always to, first of all, interpret a story in the best way for a different medium. And then second of all, take any flaws in the original and, change them, update them, improve them. And I think a lot of movies, it's a hard thing to do, and I think a lot of movies really don't get that right, and they, think updating flaws means like, a la Bridge to Terabithia, changing it to modern day for no reason. Could have just kept it in its time period, guys. It was fine where it was. A good movie, a less good book. If you must read the book, which I think it is still valuable to read it. I mean, after all, the book did come first, and the book still, like, there's some really nice pieces of writing there. It's a good book. But if you must read it, don't get the audiobook. I'm sorry, David Case. Don't get the audiobook.